$10,076,000.
Yeah, that.
By the way, this is like picking at an old scab for many women.
What's happening? What's happening with
right
you?
Caitlin Clark, the biggest name in women's basketball, right now has been disrespected yet again, this time with racial undertones.
Better. Because I know that she's going to make a lot more money than this, but I think it's a...
WNBA media personalities had the nerve to question her value, downplay her impact, and make it seem like she doesn't deserve the recognition she's getting. But here's the thing: the numbers don't lie. Is this just another case of jealousy? Or is there a deeper agenda at play? Let's break it all down, because this is...
Black and White Sports Reporters. Well, we're going to talk about these statements coming from Caitlin Clark's agent. Now, I don't know about many of you, but I've tended to believe that maybe she could use some new representation. Some people have brought up Clutch. I don't know about that.
Caitlin Clark isn't just a great basketball player. She's a face of women's basketball. Right now, whether people like it or not, she's bringing in fans, selling out arenas, and boosting WNBA ratings like nobody's before. But somehow, instead of celebrating her impact, some media personalities have decided to tear her down, questioning whether she deserved the attention she's getting. And the worst part of the way they're framing this conversation has a serious racial undertone.
But I think a lot of us believe that Caitlin Clark got hung out to dry on that Nike deal. I mean, the guy that literally signed Michael Jordan to Nike come out and said Caitlin Clark should have gotten $100 million plus percentages. Like there should have literally been a Jordan-like Clark brand that was birthed out as she entered the league. That's the amount of pull that she's got.
I don't know about you, but when I see an athlete single-handedly changing the game, I expect respect. I expect the media to acknowledge the numbers, the influence, and the undeniable fact that this player is a reason people are tuning in. Instead, we have these so-called experts trying to diminish her success, making it seem like she's being propped up unfairly. It's crazy how the rules suddenly change when the player in question is Caitlin Clark.
She is the WNBA's equivalent of Michael Jordan coming into the league. You guys, I used to say it a lot. Steph Curry, the hybrid love child of Steph Curry and Larry Bird, with the marketing, the branding of Michael Jordan. That's pretty damn good. And you saw a reflection of that, attendance, gate. We don't talk about gate revenue enough, but gate revenue is how much are you willing to pay to literally get in and sit down and watch Caitlin.
Let's break it down. The numbers don't lie. The WNBA for years has struggled to pull in consistent viewership, even when greats like Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, and Candace Parker were at their peak. The league never saw the kind of excitement and revenue it's experiencing right now. What changed? Caitlin Clark stepped onto court. Ticket prices for Indiana Fever games skyrocketed before she even played her first game. Every arena she plays and is packed. Jersey sales are through the roof. More people are watching WNBA games than ever before. And guess what? Most of those new viewers are there for Clark. That's not an opinion. That's data. Yet despite all of this, we got mainstream sports media trying to push this narrative that Clark's success isn't just about her talent, that it's somehow unfair that she's getting this much attention, that she's not the only reason for the WBA's recent boom. And listen, I get it, she's not the only talented player in the league. There are other great rookies and veterans who have been putting in work for years. But let's be honest, none of them have had the impact Caitlin Clark has. The media's problem isn't just that she's successful, it's that she doesn't fit the narrative they're comfortable with. The WNBA has always been a league that struggles to gain mainstream traction. And suddenly this one player comes in and changes everything. And because she doesn't fit the mold of what they expected the WNBA's savior to look like, they're scrambling one. The most frustrating things about the situation is how the media keeps shifting the goalposts. When Clark was dominating in college, they said, let's see how she does in the WNBA now that she's here. And still pulling in record numbers, they're saying, well, it's not just that the entire rookie class deserves credit, which is that nobody is saying other players aren't talented. Nobody is saying they haven't contributed to the league's growth. But let's be real, Caitlin Clark is the main reason casual fans are subtly interested in the WNBA. She's a reason why networks are investing more. She's a reason new sponsorships are rolling in now. Let's talk about what really set this whole debate off: the disrespect she's been getting from some WNBA media personalities. Some of these reporters, people who are supposed to be objective, have been going out of their way to downplay Clark's influence. They're not just questioning whether she deserves more money, they're questioning whether she deserves to be seen as the biggest name in women's basketball. One CBS reporter actually had the nerve to say Clark isn't the person to move the sport forward, that she isn't the player the WNBA needs. Excuse me, if Clark isn't the player to move the WNBA forward, then who is? Because so far she's the only one bringing in these kind of numbers. She's the one putting butts in seats. She's the one making people care. And let's not pretend this doesn't have a racial component the WNBA has always struggled with. Marketing its players for years has been an ongoing issue. How do they get the league to grow? How do they get people to watch? And now, they finally have a player who is doing exactly what they've been begging for. And suddenly it's a problem thing about how the media treats male athletes who dominate their sport. When LeBron James came into the NBA, nobody was saying, well, other rookies deserve credit too when Patrick Mahomes took over the NFL. Nobody was downplaying his impact, but with Caitlin Clark, there's a constant effort to make sure she doesn't get full credit for what she's doing. It's actually insane when you think about it. The WNBA is finally seeing real mainstream attention, something it's struggled with for decades, and instead of fully embracing it, some media figures are trying to control the narrative in a way that downplays why this is happening. And you know what's even crazier? The WNBA itself isn't exactly jumping to defend Clark. Either you'd think they'd be all in on promoting her as the face of the league, you'd think they'd be making sure she gets the recognition she deserves. But nope, they're staying quiet. While these ridiculous debates keep happening now, here's where things get even more interesting. Clark's agent, Erin Kinane, recently spoke out about whether Caitlin will ever get paid her true worth in the WNBA. And the answer, probably not, at least not under the current system. That's because WNBA salaries are ridiculously low compared to other professional leagues. Even the biggest names in the WNBA don't come close to what NBA players make. And here's the kicker. WNBA players aren't even getting a fair share of the money the league is bringing in. Take jersey sales. For example, players like Kelsey Piel have openly said they don't see a dime from their jersey sales. Think about that. These women are the reason fans are buying merch. But the league isn't giving them their fair cut. And this is where Clark could actually make a real difference, not just in popularity, but in how WNBA players are treated. Financially, she's already generating revenue like no other player before her. And if the league wants to keep this momentum going, they're going to have to start paying their players what they deserve. But again, instead of supporting this, the media wants to twist the conversation into a debate about whether Clark is too. WNBA don't come close to what NBA players make. And here's the kicker. WNBA players aren't even getting a fair share of the money the league is bringing in. Take jersey sales. For example, players like Kelsey Piel have openly said they don't see a dime from their jersey sales. Think about that. These women are the reason fans are buying merch. But the league isn't giving them their fair cut. And this is where Clark could actually make a real difference, not just in popularity, but in how WNBA players are treated financially. She's already generating revenue like no other player before her. And if the league wants to keep this momentum going, they're going to have to start paying their players what they deserve. But again, instead of supporting this, the media wants to twist the conversation into a debate about whether Clark is too popular. They want to make it seem like her success is somehow unfair. Meanwhile, she's just out here doing what every professional athlete should be doing, playing hard, winning games, and bringing more eyes to the sport. So what's really going on here? Why are certain people in the media so determined to control the way Clark's success is perceived? Why do they feel the need to downplay her accomplishments instead of just admitting that she's the biggest thing to ever happen to the WNBA? At the end of the day, it comes down to insecurity and bias. Some people just can't handle the fact that Caitlin Clark is that good. They can't handle that she's breaking records and setting new standards, and instead of just appreciating it, they want to find ways to discredit her. But here's the truth. They can say whatever they want. They can try to twist the narrative, push whatever agendas they have, and pretend like Clark isn't a name in women's basketball right now. But the fans, they know the ticket sales. They show it the ratings. They prove it. Caitlin Clark isn't just a star. She's a game changer. And no matter how hard the media tries to rewrite the story, they cannot erase the impact she's already made. And guess what? She's just getting started. Let's get one thing straight. Caitlin Clark doesn't need the media's approval to be great. She's already proven herself on the court in the numbers and with a massive wave of fans she's brought to the WNBA. But here's the thing. The media has spent so much energy trying to control the narrative around her that it's actually starting to backfire. Fans aren't stupid. They see what's happening. They see the way Clark is being disrespected and how the goalposts keep moving every time she succeeds. And instead of turning against her, they're doubling down. They're showing up to games, buying her jerseys, and supporting her in ways that the WNBA hasn't seen before. The media wanted to downplay her success, but all they did was highlight it even more, and now they're scrambling. So let's talk about what's been happening the past few weeks after some of these so-called Experts made dismissive comments about Clark's Impact fans. Immediately, pushback social media exploded with people calling out the blatant double standards. People started pulling up receipts showing how other rookies talented, as they maybe simply haven't brought in the same viewership ticket sales or merchandise numbers. That Clark has the funniest part, these same reporters who were trying to keep things fair and spread the credit suddenly went silent when the data started circulating. Because at the end of the day, you can't argue with facts, Caitlin. Clark is responsible for the biggest attendance spikes in WNBA history. She's the reason Fever games are now must-watch events. If you remove her from the equation, the WNBA doesn't suddenly have all this mainstream attention. It goes right back to struggling for relevance. But instead of admitting this, some members of the sports media are now trying to spin it a different way. They're shifting the conversation from Clark's impact to Clark's privilege. This is where things take a really interesting turn. Certain voices in the media, ones who have no problem hyping up male athletes, are now suddenly concerned about overexposure. They're suddenly worried that Caitlin Clark is getting too much attention. They want to talk about how other players deserve their fair share of the spotlight, as if Clark herself is stealing the attention rather than earning it. Let me ask you something. When was the last time the media had the same concern for male athletes? When LeBron James entered the NBA as a teenager with unreal hype, did we hear anyone in the media say, well, let's make sure we don't talk about LeBron too much because it's unfair to the other rookies? Nope. When Patrick Mahomes started tearing up the NFL and became the face of the league, did we hear people saying, let's not give him too much credit because there are other talented quarterbacks too? Of course not. But with Caitlin Clark, suddenly there's too much attention on one player. Make that make sense. This isn't about fairness. This isn't about spreading the spotlight. This is about controlling the narrative. The media isn't used to a player like Clark dominating the conversation, and they don't like that they can't ignore her. And here's where things get even worse. The WNBA itself isn't exactly rushing to defend her. If the league was smart, they'd be doing everything they could to promote Caitlin Clark as the face of the WNBA. They'd be pushing her as the reason the league is gaining traction. They'd be making sure she's properly compensated, properly marketed, and properly respected. But instead, they're letting this nonsense continue. They're letting media members throw shade at Clark without pushing back. They're letting the conversation get hijacked by narratives that hurt the league rather than helping it. And here's what's really ironic. Clark's rise isn't just good for her. It's good for every WNBA player. The more money she brings into the league, the more money everyone makes. The bigger the TV ratings, the bigger the future contract for all players. Instead of fighting against Clark's popularity, the league should be embracing it, but they're not, because they're too caught up in playing politics. This is why Clark's agent Aaron Kane spoke up about how unrealistic it is for Caitlin to ever be paid her full worth in the WNBA. And she's right, because under the current system, even the biggest stars in the WNBA aren't making anywhere close to what NBA players make. Even the most successful women's basketball players still have to go overseas to make real money. This is the issue that should be talked about, but instead the media is busy debating whether Caitlin Clark is getting too much credit. Think about how ridiculous that is. Clark is actively helping the WNBA become more profitable, and instead of celebrating that, the conversation is about whether she's taking too much attention away from other players. No wonder fans are frustrated. And here's the crazy part. This backlash isn't just coming from casual fans. Even people within the WNBA world are starting to push back. Look at Kelsey Plum. She's openly talked about how WNBA players don't see a share of their own jersey sales. Look at players who have called out the unfair salary structure. If Caitlin Clark is bringing in millions of new fans, shouldn't the focus be on making sure all WNBA players get paid fairly? Instead, the media would rather waste time debating nonsense. Now, let's talk about what's happening behind the scenes. There are already rumors that Caitlin Clark is fed up with how she's being treated by certain parts of the media, and honestly, who can blame her? Imagine being the biggest reason the WNBA is finally getting mainstream attention, only to have people try to downplay your success at every turn. Imagine being undeniably the most marketable player in the league, only to be met with constant debates about whether you deserve the attention you're getting. How long before Clark decides she's had enough? Because here's the thing. Clark doesn't need the WNBA. The WNBA needs her. If she decided tomorrow that she'd rather make money and endorsements and not deal with this nonsense, she'd still be set for life. But if the WNBA loses Clark, that mainstream attention goes with her. The league is playing a dangerous game right now. Instead of making sure Clark feels valued and respected, they're letting her be treated as a controversy rather than a superstar. And sooner or later, that's going to backfire because fans see what's happening, they see the double. Standards, they see the ridiculous narratives, and they're not. Going to sit back and accept that the media thought they could control the story. They thought they could downplay Caitlin Clark's impact and push their own agenda. But guess what? The fans are louder, the numbers are clear, and Caitlin Clark isn't going anywhere. So the media can try to rewrite the story all they want. They can try to twist the facts and control the conversation. But in the end, they can't change the truth. Caitlin Clark is the biggest name in women's basketball. She is the reason people are watching the WNBA, and whether they like it or not, they're going to have to accept it because the fans already have. And the fans, they don't forget, they don't let media narratives erase what's right in front of them. And most importantly, they don't let greatness be ignored. All right, guys, that's my take on this absolute mess from the WNBA media. What do you think? Is this just jealousy, a race-based agenda? Or is it just another classic example of the media trying to control the narrative drop? Your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear what you think. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. We're bringing real sports talk, no filters, no nonsense. See you in the next one.